You're listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Here are your hosts, Fran Chismar and Tom Kinezic.
Welcome back to The Buzz, brought to you by the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. I am Fran Chismar.
And I'm Tom Kinezic, and today we're buzzing into episode 206, and I forgot the area. I think it's Tacoma, Washington. So,
all right, I need to start looking ahead so I can try to come up with hands.
No, it wasn't Dakota. It's Washington State, includes Seattle and most of its suburbs.
Hello, Seattle. I know we have some listeners out there. If you're in the 206, give a shout out.
Tacoma's there.
Yeah.
No, Tacoma's different. That's 253.
All right.
So
If you're in the 206, welcome. So how busy are you? How crazy are you right now? We're mid-April.
It's getting a little nuts.
We're not even like halfway through our spring. Like I consider our spring March through the 4th of July.
Yeah.
So we're almost halfway through, and it's just today ratcheted it up like another level.
Yes. Yeah. And it's one of those things where like I look in the future sometimes. This is like back in January, February, and I'm like, oh, there's some meetings there. April's like not that busy. I'll be okay. I can take off 2 days and go to the New York State Wetlands Forum and go up there. And then all weekend I'm like, I have no time. I have too much to do. I stopped. Like we had our basement flooded a little bit. So that was a little issue. So I was taking care of that. But then even with all the other stuff I had to do, I wasn't done until probably 11 p.m. And I was so happy when my son crawled into bed at 4:30 this morning saying, "Tell me a story." No. Not right now.
So you're heading up to upstate New York to do the New York State Wetlands Forum. And then Friday, you and I both have a conference here right down the road, fortunately, for the Society of American Military Engineers, SAME conference, which we go to every year, which is a wonderful conference.
Yes, yeah.
It's just kind of crazy.
Yeah, by the time you're listening to this, actually, I know some of you are going to be listening to this on the way to that conference. So we'll talk to you more in a couple minutes.
But it's crazy. So we're actually going to try to keep this one a little shorter than normal. Yeah. We say that every time. We say let's try to keep this one about an hour, and we go 90 minutes like clockwork. I got it right here.
Well, I'm setting an alarm.
All right,
it's going to go off.
All right,
and we need to be done by.
We're actually recording this. It's Monday. You're listening to this on a Friday. We're doing this on Monday because it was the only feasible time that we had to do this. But as far as follow up goes, what makes it easy for us to be able to do this on a Monday as opposed to a Friday is that both book winners have reached out to us and claimed their prizes. They're both in the mail, or I shouldn't say in the mail. They've both been shipped out via UPS. So we wanted to congratulate Matt Marvin and Becky Ham for both listening consistently enough that you heard that you won the books. Leah Rampy had reached out on social media, very excited that these books are going out to hands of our listeners, and we would love to get your feedback after you read it, if you like the book or not. So So we're excited. Is this the first time that we got all the giveaways claimed within a week? Within a week?
Probably. Usually it happens pretty quick. We've had to respin once, right?
Yeah, I was a little concerned because Becky's review said that she's never missed an episode, and a week went by.
Yeah.
And she hadn't claimed it. And I'm like, I guess that's not the case. And she contacted us late in the day Friday saying, I was on vacation. Like, I'm just catching up. Or you're all good. So books are claimed and shipped out, beautifully autographed, and we hope that you love the books.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And then, Fran, I actually got you a gift.
Really?
Yeah. So
I'm curious
somehow
what this
get this over to you. I don't have a good stick to.
All right. And I get to open it. It's wrapped.
You get you get to open it here.
All right.
So this is something I found on Instagram. It was an Instagram buy.
All right.
I couldn't turn it down.
Ooh, very, very cool. Did you get yourself one also?
I got myself one. Yep. And I got one for my brother.
This is fantastic. So it's a jar from the Native Spice Company, and it's called Native Plant Seasoning Salt. So it's wood smoked salt with juniper, sumac, and spice bush berries. That sounds delicious. It says excellent on meat, especially game, fish, vegetables, egg dishes, sandwiches, and even popcorn. Produced and distributed in Charlotte, North Carolina. This is fantastic. I can't wait to try it.
Oh, it's
Have
good.
you tried it?
It's really good.
All right.
Yeah, it's the smoked salt gives it like a smokiness, but like you think juniper berries and you think like gin, that kind of flavor. And I was like, oh, I hope this isn't like overpowering juniper, but it's not. It's there, but it's not overpowering. It's really good. So take a little dust, put it in your hand, take a lick.
I'm doing pork tomorrow night. You think that would be good on pork?
I would think so, yeah. But I saw it on Instagram. I think it's a brand new company. I think when I ordered it, my order number was like 000006. So I'm assuming I'm one of the first orders.
Oh, that's got a really, really good taste.
Yeah.
To it.
So, but his guy Aaron down in Georgia, and I messaged him a little bit after, and so they have that one has like applewood or not. It's like smoked salt, right? That's in it.
Yeah,
I forget what it says on the bottle.
Wood smoked salt.
But then they have like salt-free versions too. I don't know if it's on their website, but he sent me some after I messaged him, and it's but it's the salt-free is also really good. But that's kind of like you're putting a rub on something, and you don't want all the heavy salt. Where that's more for finishing. Yeah. And but even that, you could probably use beforehand. It's great.
I can't wait. Have we talked about having tried Epic bars?
I don't think so. No.
So we did try only one. I'm going to order some more, but we tried it was bison.
Yeah, it was bison bacon cranberry.
Yeah,
very good.
Excellent, excellent. I went through mine like incredibly quick, and it wasn't. I was concerned. You know, when you look at like Force of Nature meats, I know it's worth it and it's good, but like price wise, it's not something I could do all the time. Epic bars, I could do that every day. It's cheaper than a coffee. If you stop and get a coffee every day, you could easily eat an Epic bar. I think it's like it comes down to about $2 a bar.
We should reach out to them and see. Maybe they want to pay us for that kind of endorsement.
but no, this is. Yeah, where can people find this spice?
Oh man, I should have looked that up beforehand. I think it's just nativespice.co. Let me see. Not .com. Nativespice.co.
This is amazing. I can't wait to try it.
It was really good. And the guy Aaron was a couple messages I shared with him, really good. He also has a YouTube channel called Botany for Kids, and I watched a couple of those videos too. And I'm like, this is really good, even if you're an adult. Pretty good. Explains things in an easy to digest manner. Not necessarily all native plants, but in this case, his product that he's selling is all native plants. So, but yeah, really good. I told him I had to ask permission. Can I give you a shout out? Because I think this is another way you can support native plants in a different way. It's not just what you're putting in your garden. You can this is helping preserve native plants somewhere else. And also it's something maybe if you're into forage or you like the idea of foraging, but you aren't bold enough to do it yourself, well, you can get it from a trusted source, and then maybe that develops you and says, hey, I'm going to try and make this myself. Maybe I want more juniper flavor in mine, and I'm going to go heavier on that. And so,
if you're looking for a way to incorporate native plants into your diet more often, it's a great small way just to like a little pinch of it for flavoring. Yep. Exciting! I can't wait to cook with it.
Yeah, no, it
maybe hopefully I'll report back the next buzz.
Yes,
what we did.
Yeah.
All right, should we kick into this?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right.
It's hot.
I would like you to go first.
Yes.
Only because we had this conversation earlier. I didn't know when we had this conversation that this was going to be your pick.
I didn't know either. That conversation's why it became my pick. And my pick for That's Hot this week is Carex plantagii, or I'm assuming I'm saying that.
Plantagii.
Right.
I would say. But
plantain leaf sedge. Yes. It's one of the very, very, very many Carex species out there. Native to the northeast U.S., it's a shade tolerant and moist soil loving species. Relatively small, only gets 1 to 2 foot tall. It's a plant that's strongly tinged with red and purple at the base and on the sheaths The evergreen leaves are broad and up to an inch across and have puckered ribs, which the puckering is actually pretty cool. The pictures that my brother sent us, my brother actually found this near his wife's, like, his in-law's house. I don't remember which in-law. It's like uncle-in-law. It's one of them.
Okay.
Someone up in Morristown, New Jersey. He was hiking around at a nature preserve, found this, and took some pictures. The pictures he took didn't have a lot of the puckering in it, which is why I was like, I'm not exactly sure if this is what it is or not. But the puckering is like really cool on the leaves sometimes. But it's distinct because the leaves are so wide.
Okay.
Much wider than a lot of other Carrick species.
And I like that it relatively stays shorter in that 1 to 2 foot range. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming that 1 to 2 foot probably includes flower stalks. As well. So it's if you want something a little lower. Most of the moist loving ones are probably in the 2 to 3 foot range. So it's nice to get something a little shorter. Yeah. So it's
something where it's pretty well commercially available. It doesn't have like a huge native range, but like out to Wisconsin and New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey is actually a very rare species.
Oh, really?
Or according to Bonap, it's listed as a rare species. So in that, where he was, that kind of neck of the woods. So
very, very cool. Awesome choice.
What's your plant this week?
I wish I could have changed it. I just didn't have time because I was out hiking Saturday, and it must be probably because I never got the timing right, but I was going through the woods, and you couldn't miss sassafras blooming. And I'm like, man, I wish I would have picked sassafras, but not enough time. So regardless, I had seen this at the preserve before, which is whitewood anemone quinquefolia. And last year we saw it with trout lily at Foggy Bottom Farms. And that was, I think we talked it. This
you
is
didn't say the botanical name correctly.
Anemone quinquefolia. Oh,
you got to sing. You got to sing it more, like Sarah Fitzsimmons said. She had Parthenocissus
quinquefolia.
Yeah.
So I'm not singing it.
What? Are you embarrassed, Fran?
Yeah, I'm just not going to sing it. Maybe another time.
Yeah.
You have to catch me in
the singing. It is, and I guess it isn't quinquefolia.
I think I.
Maybe it is.
Wrong.
Yeah.
I think I missed
like
the cue.
Quinquefolia. I'm usually a bass. I tried to go a couple octaves higher there.
We can harmonize. But it's a low, delicate plant with a whorl of 3-stalked, deeply cut leaves and a solitary stalked white flower. Slender stalk has basal leaves and a whorl of 3 to 5 parted leaves in its apex. A single white or pink flower arises above the leaf whorl. Solitary divided leaves also arise from the rootstock, disappears after blooming. It's an early spring wildflower which often forms sizable stands on woodland borders. Since anemones are usually slender-stalked and tremble in the breeze, they have been called windflowers. Part shade to shade, moist to damp, rich mucky soils, forms ground colonies, all parts poisonous. It's facultative upland and native from Maine to Georgia, west to Oklahoma, and north to Nebraska. I actually recycled this one from an earlier buzz that we had done, but it's since seeing it at Foggy Bottom Farms, which that really came about. Those stands got a little bit better after you did some daylighting for a quail project, correct?
Yeah, yeah.
So, but I noticed it, like the place that I go to most often by my house has it down by the stream side, which I noticed. So it made me think of seeing them last year at Foggy Bottom. Have you been out this year to look at?
No, I haven't had the time to do it. It's between the rain and all this. I was with that quail project. I was hoping to go in and use some herbicides. We have a lot of invasive plants that are in there. Multiflora rose. There's a couple different non-native brambles that are in there. Japanese barberry. There's privet in there, and I was hoping to, since those things tend to leaf out earlier than a lot of our native species, go in, hit them with some herbicide, and knock them back. We had pretty good success with our burn, knocking some of that stuff back. But just didn't have the time. And then, like, when I did have the time, it's because it was raining. So it's like, well, can't do that. That's not a good time to go spray.
Yeah, I know we were down there looking at something a couple weeks ago, but I think it was too early for some of these species to have been flowering. So I haven't been back there since. But maybe one day at lunch I'll scoot over there and see how it's looking.
Yeah.
So very curious. But two great choices. I know the ephemerals may be a little harder to find, but if you can get your hands on that, or the Carex, let's say I'll try Plantagia, like either or, they're great choices, very specific choices. You have to have the right conditions if you want to have these plants. But if you do, go out of your way, make an effort to find them, and I think they would be great additions. To me, like those early spring ephemerals are really cool because it's like spring is right around the corner when you see them. So two fantastic choices. If you get a chance, add them to your garden.
Stay tuned for more of the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
All right, I have a question for you.
Okay.
If you had to guess, what would you think the number one question asked to us by our listeners?
It's clearly where to get the best pizza in New Jersey, right?
We're the connoisseurs. Why shouldn't you ask us that? And where is that?
I would go with Papa's in Robbinsville.
All right, I have to agree with you on that one. As long as you didn't say Di Lorenzo's, that would be a deal breaker.
Oh, that's a close second.
I was thinking more that the number one question we get asked all the time, whether we're making a public appearance or getting it through the Facebook group, is where can I find native plants? That seems to be we get everyone all pumped up, and then they get excited and they go out to the local garden center, and then they get disappointed because they can't find what they're looking for. I'm excited to announce that for 2024, our friends at Centerton Nursery, who when I think of Centerton Nursery, this is their 50th year, celebrating their 50th year in business. When I think of Centerton, I think of quality and integrity and a incredible supplier of plant material to garden centers. They have a flagship brand called Blue Label Plants, and they've released a new collection of species-form native perennials called TrueBlew Natives. And we saw this released at the trade show in Baltimore, and when we walked by, it made an impact. Like, there was a buzz around it, and we was like, oh, this is what everyone's been waiting for. Yeah.
They bought into native plants, and it was really exciting to see. And even though Centerton has offered native plants for decades, they wanted to both bolster their species offering and highlight these incredible plants, making it easier for gardeners to find native plants in the garden center that are not only beautiful but beneficial to the ecosystem around them.
Yeah, I mean, this is something they've been doing anyway. They want you to be successful going in, and this is something that they're not just cashing in on. This is something that they truly believe in, and many of these plants are being grown from seed, locally collected, proper ecotype. It's just nice to know that this is something that you'll be able to find. I mean, they're highlighting nearly 70 species of plants native to the eastern United States. They're looking at making this 100 different plants within the next year, and it's going to give your landscape everything it needs to be healthy, beautiful, and ecologically supportive. They're giving you the tools and the thing that you've been asking for in an easy, recognizable way. You can have a neighbor that doesn't know native plants, and you could say, I want you to go in, and I just want you to look. I want you to look for TrueBlew Natives.
Yeah.
And it's as easy as that. Yeah,
we've been talking to folks at Centerton for a while now, and we're really excited that they're doing this. They're really excited for their future. Yeah. They've bought in.
And it's not just perennials. It's shrubs also. Mm-hmm. And they have a big reach. I mean, they supply from Maine to Georgia all the way out to Nebraska. And we're talking like a large area that if you walk into a garden center and you don't see them, you can easily say, hey, I've been looking for TrueBlew Natives. You can ask for it. It's something that I'd be surprised if you walked into a garden center and didn't
see some of their plants there. So you can find TrueBlew Natives along with their complete offering of perennials and shrubs from Blue Label exclusively at independent garden centers throughout the Midwest, Mid-Atlantic, and New England states. Visit www.bluelabel.com for more information and to find a dealer near you.
Again, that is TrueBlew Natives, TrueBlew, and make sure you visit www.bluelabel.com, BLEWLABEL. We'll also have links in the show notes.
Welcome back to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
All right, just for the sake of time, let's keep this rolling. Let's go right into this or that.
Please. We're doing pretty well, Fran. We're about 15 minutes in?
15 minutes in, not too shabby. So last week's articles, I had an article about bird-friendly laws, which included Melinda Soltis. And you had an article about wildlife and eclipses, because we did experience the eclipse.
And
since
it was a shellacking.
I'm kind of shocked. I'm guessing. I really enjoyed your article. I'm guessing my win has to do with it mentioning Melinda Soltis. Not saying that it's not of substance.
Your win was because people don't like HOAs, one. And then two, I was clearly pandering with the eclipse. Everything I talked about had something to do with an eclipse.
But it was interesting to think about, like, the results were I won 21-6. But shortly after we recorded that, we had the eclipse, and I was very cognizant listening to birds or wildlife just to see, like, how was everything interacting during this? And it just so happened, like, what was it, like 45 minutes before the eclipse, clouds rolled in for us here. So we were able to see it, but it was very overcast. So it was kind of dark anyway. But I don't know if I noticed more bird activity because I was paying attention or if it was more than normal.
It was interesting. I thought about that too. Because I noticed, and now we didn't get 100%, 90 something, and it was definitely, it got a little bit darker, but we also had pretty heavy cloud cover, and there wasn't really any birds making noise, and I was torn on, is this actually like an eclipse thing? Or is it because we have 40 people sitting outside where they would otherwise make noise?
Away, yeah.
As soon as all those people, the eclipse ended and all the people left, and I'm out there cleaning up, birds are going crazy. It was loud. And I'm like, I don't know what actually caused it. But it was interesting. I noticed that too.
Yeah. So it was very cool. It made me think about something I had a thought about. But, on the flip side, the other article, it was nice to see how many laws are now starting to come about and click into place to help native plants and to help pollinators and to help habitat and help birds. It's cool to see that wheel in motion now and gaining momentum. So and even better that one of our listeners was talked about in it. So given that, I'm going to go first because speaking of pandering and listeners, my article is written by one of our listeners. So the name of my article is "What's So Great About Native Plants?" and this is written by Curtis Honeycutt, who, if I remember correctly, he was the finalist for the Native Plant Anthem.
Yes, he came in second.
Yeah, came in second.
Second out of two?
Second out of two. But still,
I still thought it was fantastic. You had two fantastic submissions for that.
I think that was your favorite of the two,
because
if I remember correctly.
I think that one I liked because they really had a lot of celebrity cameos involved.
That's very true. That's very true. So this appears in the Hamilton County Reporter, and this is I can't remember if it's a weekly strip or if it's a monthly strip that Curtis is now doing for them. So I will get right into it. A 2022 National Gardening Survey reported a significant rise in native plant purchases. Since 2019, the number of people buying them has nearly doubled, with 58% of surveyed consumers reporting purchases in 2022. Home gardeners are increasingly seeking out native plants at specialty stores and nurseries rather than traditional garden centers and big box stores. So what's the deal with the floral phenomenon? My journey down the native plant garden path started with monarch butterflies. Around 8 years ago, I read about how the eastern monarch population had declined by more than 80% since the 1990s. I learned that monarchs exclusively laid their eggs on milkweed plants. If I could do something to help in my own yard, I would. That's when I planted butterfly weed, an attractive member of the milkweed family featuring stunning orange flowers and deep green narrow-leaf foliage. Once my butterfly weed bloomed, I noticed a stark contrast between this plant and others. Not only did the plant welcome monarch butterfly visitors, but I watched as multiple species of bees, moths, and butterflies stop by for a hit of the plant's sweet nectar. This didn't happen with my other plants. I grew irises, hostas, daylilies, and daffodils in the flower beds around my house. These plants were attractive, but after seeing the pollinator visitors to the butterfly weed, I observed that hardly any insects or birds interacted with the other plants. While pretty, the plants proved to be pretty boring to pollinators. My family and I moved from our Fisher's home into a house in downtown Noblesville the following year. Not because of the plant situation, but because we loved the Noblesville house, and its walkable proximity to local shops and restaurants. Although I was tempted to dig up the butterfly weed and bring it with us, I didn't. The new owners deserved to witness the summertime array of cool butterflies for themselves. As we settled into the new house, I decided to dig deeper into plants. I soon learned the difference between native and introduced plants. I discovered my yard could benefit bugs, birds, butterflies, and other forms of biodiversity. The plants I inherited around my Noblesville house were a mix of natives, non-natives, and a few invasive species. Gardening was fun, and I got to work editing the beds in my new yard. I yanked the invasives and began to plant native flowers from seed and plug. I realized I didn't care for some of the introduced plants, but that I liked some of the others. To this day, we still have a non-native hydrangea, peonies, and tulips dotted around the mulch beds. Not that there's anything wrong with that. Beyond attracting and supporting local pollinators, it turns out there are many benefits to planting native plants in your yard. Once established, most native plants require very little watering and need relatively little maintenance. They don't need fertilizer or pesticides. Since they are acclimated to the area, native plants can withstand local weather conditions. By developing deep root systems, these plants actively provide erosion control and filter pollutants from reaching waterways, and many native plants are absolute showstoppers. The right plant, the right place, can provide a ton of curb appeal in any suburban setting. I'm not a native plant expert. I'm more of an enthusiast. Perhaps plant nerd is a more fitting term. In Wild by Design, I don't plan to use many specific names for plants, and I won't flaunt any hoity-toity horticultural titles in front of you. I want you to take steps along with me to make our Hamilton County yards both beautiful and beneficial. I want us to cultivate vibrant landscapes that celebrate the unique beauty and ecological benefits of native plants in Hamilton County. That doesn't mean you have to go outside and immediately rip up all your flower beds. However, this column is intended to encourage readers to thoughtfully consider adding these plants to their outdoor habitats along the way. Thanks for going on this outdoor adventure with me. So I thought that was a great, I think Curtis maybe would have preferred had I waited a couple articles in to get the ball rolling. But I'm just so impressed and proud of our listeners trying to make a difference and spread the circle, not just in their own yards. Denise Alvarez had shared for her township, they put together a video highlighting a tree I can't remember if it's Tree of the Week or Tree of the Month, and the tree was Bradford pear so that they could highlight why it's invasive. And so many of our listeners are getting involved, whether it be in commissions, things where they can make a difference. I know Bill Stusnick and his wife had reached out about helping to make April Native Plant Month.
Yes,
in New Jersey,
with the Garden Clubs of America. New Jersey Garden Clubs of America.
So many of you are taking that initiative to get involved, have a voice, try to make a positive change, and going about it. You know, I think about it myself, like on my own Facebook page. I had a friend from high school. If you're a member of the Facebook group, the SpongeBob meme with invasive plants. Yeah. And one of my friends is like, I have a Rosa Sharon. I didn't plant it. I inherited it. And the only reason it's there are because of the hummingbirds. And I was like, I get it. I see it with my neighbors. They like the red center. Like, I understand why you're keeping it. But if you ever decide to make a change, I'd be happy to give you suggestions of other native plants that hummingbirds would like if you want to swap it out. And she was like, you know what? I'm not married to this. It's by the door. And it does get a lot of bee interaction. And I don't really like that by the door. So not that I'm opposed to it. So it's just like I tried to think real quick, like, how can I talk about this in a positive way without criticizing their choices and just get them to think, hey, I can help you if you want to do something about it. And I feel that's what our listeners are doing. And this is just another great example. I mean, Curtis is doing this column based on native plants. And he kind of shared the outline of some of the things he's going to talk about with this column over time. And man, it's just an awesome thing, and I hope it really takes off, and I hope that it makes the difference that I think it should.
Yeah. And what I was really impressed with was the language of it all.
Yes.
It's it says it at the end. I noticed it before it said it, that the terminology was he didn't say non-native. It was introduced.
Yes.
I think maybe later he said non-native, but it's introduced is a friendlier term to that line of plants, which some of you may be thinking is like, well, why would we want to be friendly to those kind of plants? And it's the people who love those plants. We need to approach them with kindness, because that's how they'll accept some of our suggestions.
Yeah.
Which really kind of goes into my article.
All right, there you go. Perfect segue.
Because my article is really a reaction to how this language against non-native plants and invasive plants is hardening some different people. So, awesome. Including the author here. So, I'll get started with mine. It was. Do you have anything else you want to talk about with yours?
No, not at all.
Yeah.
No, this is perfect. Let's run right into it.
It was titled "The Widening Gap Between Popular Beliefs and Science on Invasive Species." It's by Colibri Terre Sonnenblum. Came out March 24th of 2024 on his blog, and I saw it shared on Facebook in a nursery group that I'm a part of. Okay. And it's a conversation when I talk to a lot of other nursery owners. They ask me about invasive plants, and well, why do we care so much? Like, why is it such a big deal? And then, the stuff's introduced. You hear all the same arguments, like, well, in urban centers, it's what's really a native plant in New York City anymore? It's so disturbed, and all the soil's not the same. And what is a native plant there? It's all those arguments is kind of a defense on why, in my opinion, why the nursery industry shouldn't have to change. And a lot of it is based on the language that's been used on what they're doing. Right. It's people saying, I've been doing this and I'm getting attacked for it. I didn't know I was doing anything wrong. And now you're telling me I'm the devil. And of course you're going to get defensive.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you get defensive?
I agree.
So, and this is kind of, like I said, this article is kind of a response to some of that language. So, I'll start reading now. As I've been mentioning here, my main winter project has been working on a book with Nikki Hill, tentatively entitled Don't Blame the Messenger, a critique of the invasive plant narrative. As part of that effort, I've been reading lots of scientific papers and peer-reviewed journals from invasion biology and other fields, and it's been really eye-opening. The popular narrative of invasive plants is really black and white. These are bad plants. They don't belong here. They cause harm to native plants. They're upsetting the balance of nature. They must be eradicated. It's a scary monster story and a militant call to arms rolled into one. But the science is far more nuanced. The amount of debate and the lack of consensus within the field is quite striking, actually, and it's been growing over time. Invasion biology as a distinct area of study only goes back to the early 80s and didn't really take off until the 90s. Given the short history, it's possible to get a picture of where it was and where it's going. And where it's going is further away from the heroes and villains trope. As I said, this is just a quick reflection, so I'm not going to provide a bunch of links and citations. That's what the book is for, after all. But I want to throw a few things out there that I've been reading lately. Except for a small number of people in the late 90s, nobody in the field of invasion biology is saying native equals good and non-native equals bad. That's just not a thing in science. The consensus in the field is that only a small number of introduced plants are able to successfully establish themselves in a new setting, and of those, only a small number can cause harm. What constitutes harm, though, is a subject of lots of debate, and the most easily demonstratable harm is economic, not ecological. Think crop yield decrease by introduced weeds, insects, or pathogens. Some scientists make the argument that harm is not something that scientists should be deciding, period, by the way, as they consider the concept completely subjective. The number of native plants that have gone extinct in the U.S., or even just in one U.S. state, due to the competition from introduced plants is zero. None. If we're talking invasive threats to native plants, the issues of predation, eaten by animals or pathogens, but predation includes being eaten by native animals too, as when deer populations blow up because we've killed all the predators like wolves, mountain lions, etc. Although native plant species richness, number of species, at the global scale has been declining due to the human activity, the species richness at local scales has been increasing due to introduction of many new species. So pretty much wherever you are when you're reading this, you're in a region that has more species of plants now than before 1492. That's not higher biodiversity, since that word refers only to native plants, but it's a higher diversity in terms of plain old raw count. An increasing number of invasion biologists are saying that the higher the species richness can have benefits for native wildlife, basically more food for herbivores, more pollen sources for insects, etc. Intriguingly, species richness of native plants is overall higher in invaded areas than non-invasive areas. And the citation for that is included in the article. Note the date on that, which is from February 2024. So February of this year, some of the most interesting findings that have been in the last decade or more recently that haven't been yet percolated out of academia, if they ever will. The pop culture invasive narratives date back to the 90s and hasn't really changed much since then, unless it's gotten more extreme. But there's been lots of new research since then, some of it due to new technology. Online databases and more computing power allow for document search and data aggregation that was virtually impossible before, when it would have meant spending countless hours going through physical journals by hand or squinting at micro. I don't even know that word. Microfiche.
Like, you may be too young for it. Like,
is that when you go to the library and
you look in the screen and you kind of that's microfiche.
That. Okay, I've done that before. Right. I'm not that young.
Well, I wasn't sure if that was.
I've just never heard it called microfiche.
That's what you had to do before the internet to go back and find old articles.
So, and then painstakingly figuring out calculations. So some of the most interesting papers of recent years have been meta-analysis, where the data is crunched from hundreds and hundreds of studies, yielding big picture views not revealed previously. Some older hypotheses from the field have not been holding up under this examination. Speaking of recent papers, today I read Systematic and Persistent Bias Against Introduced Species from the January issue of the journal Bioscience. This meta-study confirmed what many people inside and outside invasion biology have long believed to be true, which is that conservation science is based against introduced species. And this 2017 paper, though it uses different methodology, says such bias has been decreasing since the mid-2000s. It is worth quoting this paper's conclusion paragraph in full. Our results wow, I'm stumbling here. Our results confirm that the narrative of introduced species as an environmental problem remains entrenched. However, there remains a persistent portion of the field who choose to frame introduced species in neutral terms, and the rise of new voices that value introduced species as part of the Earth's biodiversity is noticeable. We look forward to evidence of the decline in the bias against introduced species. Invasion biologists have defensively argued that criticism to their field is a form of science denial, rather than what critics of invasion biology have objected to is the consistent and persistent efforts by many of the field to characterize introduced species in a negative way. Scientists should always be cautious when ascribing value to empirical observations, should maintain an open mind when setting out to describe the complexity of the living world, and should apply critical thinking, particularly when views become entrenched. We hope this study promotes openness, debate, and pluralism in conservation. So the field is engaging in self-examination and self-correction according to the second paper, which is what good science is supposed to do. It's my hope, of course, that my own efforts in writing on the subject will lead to similarly positive shifts in the popular narrative. On a logistical note, one challenge is researching scientific literature, is that much of it is behind paywalls and that are quite expensive, like $30 per paper, expensive. And then he gives some resources of where you can find some of these, like academia.edu can have papers that are freely accessible. You can also go to Anna's Archive, which is a foreign-hosted gray area website, which you can find through an internet search. He is just passing along, and myself is included, having said it, just passing along the information, not making a recommendation.
Yeah.
And then another trick, which I've used and other people in our office have used, when you have a paper that you've seen and you can't get access to it for free, is write directly to the paper's author. And a lot of times they'll send it to you if you ask. Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of a cool thing. So no, I say all this, basically because you can see there is a counter offensive that's been brewing, I think, for a while against this, as invasive plant bills have been passed across the country and kind of blindsided a lot of these nursery growers that may not be exposed to ecological professionals that are seeing what's happening in these wild areas. So they feel blindsided. They feel personally attacked by some of the language that's being out there. And I think it's important to be cognizant of that when we are talking about these things. I just saw Michelle Backus from Rutgers Cooperative Extension over the weekend. And so they have, will be passed by this point, but on Wednesday this week, they have the New Jersey invasive species meeting at Duke Farms. And she's speaking there. And one of the presentations she's giving, and they just had one at the national level, is how do we talk about this politely? Some of that is like you have, what am I trying to say? Like a lot of these species are from Asia.
Yeah.
So you have Japanese barberry and Chinese silvergrass and all these things with those kind of names. Is like, well, how do we talk about those without you're already talking about them quasi-negatively, no matter how nice you are, saying that we need to get rid of these. Yeah. But then how do you remove the racial stigma from that as well? That's just implied by the name of the plant. So it's something people are cognizant of and are trying to move forward with. I think everyone needs to be cognizant of it. My brother will get he gets really upset and he's like, I hate this plant more than any other plant. We're talking about Bradford pears. I hate this plant more than any other plant. And I'm like, the plant isn't doing anything wrong itself. You
just gave it perfect conditions.
It was released into perfect conditions. But it wasn't the plant's choice to do that. Yeah. The plant is doing what plants do, and that's trying to reproduce and spread and make more of itself, or make more plants in its species. So our native species are doing the same thing. They're trying to do the same thing. So
kind of like King Kong. He didn't ask to come here.
Yeah.
If you had been left where he was at, he would have been just fine. Mm-hmm. It's I was thinking about it it's funny. I was just thinking about this weekend in a different way. I had seen something about the original Survivor.
Yeah.
I was thinking about those contests where you're on another island and you're eating these bugs that are freaking people out that they have to eat these. But
I think I've seen some
but you're at a place where that is a delicacy and that's what they have. Yeah. So not that you can't eat it and sustain it. It's just not your first choice and you'd prefer not to.
Yeah.
And I think that's with a lot of these plants. Mm-hmm. Pollinators would rather have these things for the most part. I'm generalizing.
Oh, yeah.
But there's some things they could eat if they got hungry enough or discovered, or maybe hey, I can get by on this, but it's not my favorite. Now, I know it's more complex than that. We've talked about the complexities of larval hosts and all things like that.
Yeah.
But
it's
when you go into a garden center, there's a multitude of choices. We're not trying to take away all of them. We're trying to take away about 15. Yeah. Which do the most damage.
Yeah. And that's where,
or to get people to think before they make that choice.
We had a
what
meeting
are the consequences
for our nursery growers last June. We're going to have another one this June. But with this invasive species bill, and I mentioned in New Jersey, and I mentioned how our nursery association was asked to be involved, which is good because in other states that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
So we had some feedback, and one of the things I really said is we need to get this in front of all of our membership as soon as we can. And I said, realistically, here's who the presenters should be. And we had some of that list was able to do it. But there's some folks in New Jersey who are really knowledgeable about native plants, can show pictures of why, hey, I know you sell a ton of silvergrass. This is what it's doing when it comes into my neck of the woods.
Yeah.
This is what's happening. Or I know you sell a ton of pears and it's a big part of your business. This is what it's doing once you get north of and on to 295. Yeah. And so I when we were discussing it, I was like, the only thing, because we can't do is go into the next wave. Let's just focus on those. I think it's 22 species on New Jersey's list. Focus on those. You don't have to focus on all of them, focus on the big ones, and then the rest are kind of lumped in.
Yeah.
But you start looking. You go back to our episode with Mike Van Cleef with the New Jersey Invasive Species Strike Team. A lot of that opinions, those are already out of the gate. Like, there's very little we can do. Like, the amount of work that would be involved to clear that out would not only be almost impossible, but have to span decades with the seed bank. So they're looking at, well, what's next? What are the things that we're noticing now? Things like Cornus cusa. And I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. Some of the stuff that they're seeing, oh, maybe this is starting to become invasive now that population densities are big enough and all that. And when we were approaching this with the nursery growers, I'm like, do not touch that. Because that's like, now you're talking about, a lot of people can say, oh, there's a list of 22 things. I grow 5 of them. Would it hurt? Our friend Keith said, this is like $500,000 worth of sales for me a year. Does that hurt? Sure. But I can redirect those customers to other things I want them to buy. Now you start talking about like paniculate hydrangea and like Coosa dogwoods and all this other stuff. And they're like, this is 3/4 of my business. Yeah. What else are you going to do but get defensive?
Well, realistically, if you look at it, for the top 10, if you could eradicate those and stop the sale of them and pretend like they'd never been here, given the amount of disturbance, there's going to be another 10 that come up behind it. That's the one thing. It's like, all right, like if you ban these 22 and then in another decade, is there another 22? Or are you just eventually just banning everything?
I don't know if you'd ever get to, because there's some things that just aren't going to thrive here in most environments.
But like Cornus cusa has been around for how long, and maybe didn't, I like we've talked about this before. Some of this has to do with disturbance and fragmentation, and if you didn't have the deer, and they mentioned if you didn't have the deer problem, would some of these species, would burning bush and barberry be as invasive if you took those things away? I'm just concerned once that disturbance, something's going to take over. If it's not that, maybe barberry and burning bush are just more aggressive than what the next tier would be. That would take over those.
So, I think they bring up a lot of really great points in that article. And like one of them being, you look at species richness, and we've talked about this. I think if you really zoomed, it depends on how far you zoom and zoom out. Like if you zoomed in to all the way to like my community, like I'm thinking of the development that's across the street. The species richness starts going down pretty fast.
Yes.
Once you expand it to like the township level, county level, that's where, species richness is way up. I don't know if overall like insect biodiversity is up. I don't know.
I don't know.
And I saw this over the weekend, and then I want to dive in some of the things that he cites in this article, but I just didn't have the time. And that's like not my big takeaway right now. Isn't necessarily what he's claiming. It was more the response to the language that we're seeing. Like I said, like I was saying with Steve, he's my brother. He's always saying, "I hate this. I hate this," and I'm like, that is just. Hate is leading to more hate. We say it with people all the time. It happens with we're just not fighting over religion. We're fighting over plants. It's we got to be more cognizant about how we talk about this stuff, including Fran and I. We're definitely not perfect.
And I keep thinking about things like I mentioned earlier, and like, all right, if say you were to eradicate all non-native insects and pollinators, how long would it take for the native insects to rebound, and would there be enough there to be sustainable for them to grow?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. Like, what impact on man would that be if you eradicated all of the non-native insects? Because they have to be providing some. Maybe they're not providing as many services, but they have to be providing some services based on what we've lost.
Yeah.
So, and it's like you don't want to have what has happened in Hawaii. Was it Maui, where it's almost no natives left? You don't want that. You want to preserve it, but at this point, you're not going to completely make it all native again. So how do you keep that balance because I'm sure it's a delicate balance, you know, and it's, you know, we need everyone to plant a few more natives. We don't need to criticize them or belittle their.
Yeah, that was another thing with when he touched on species richness, and then I want to wrap up because we do have
we do have
on.
to. Yeah,
but as you talk about species richness, and like we've talked about in some of the prairie restoration articles we've touched on before, it's not necessarily one of 100 things is not really that helpful. Where the right combination of 10 things is probably, you still have 100 plants, but if it's allocated properly, is probably way more beneficial than one of 100 things. Because there's some things that want to be, there is going to be one, and then there's some things that there need to be 50.
Yeah.
You need to have like a whole swath for it to actually function properly. That was one of my biggest pet peeves with selling retail plants, is the folks who wanted a list of like, it's 50 items, one of each, which is why I changed it that you had to get at least 5, because that's realistic how you should be planning it anyway. You should be planning one of each. It's it loses some of the benefit that way. So
I noticed even in my own yard, like things, because like I recently caged everything in because the deer had been browsing it back, and now that like things are being like, I'm trying to let things like elderberry colonize, or things like Virginia rose colonize a little bit without getting knocked back, and now that it's protected, and not just one, I want it to be a colony. I want it to fill in and do what it's supposed to do. It's just allowing it to happen. You know, and you don't just want one of some. There are some things where in nature you'll find a lone species, but for the most part, that's why there's forests, that's why there's meadows, there's multiple. So sorry, that's my
two good articles, Fran.
Two fantastic.
I think your article was good. I think my article raised some. I think it was good too. It raised some good.
I think they're both points. Good. Both very good articles. Both kind of like on the same spectrum as far as what they're talking about. On Monday, we're going to post the poll on our Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group, and make sure you vote because.
And of course, the choice is yours.
Stay tuned for more of the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Welcome back to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery.
I am thinking listener shout-outs.
Listener, shout out.
So I am going to go first, since my list is a lot smaller than
Once again,
yours.
Mine is smaller than last week. So.
Now that we're through the giving the books away, it's slowed down a little bit. But I wanted to thank Jason Blowers for his thank you suggestions in our outro that you will notice when you start the outro. I changed it.
Oh, yeah.
Based on his suggestion, it was very succinct, and I think it will work. It sounds way better, and I think it will flow much better. So I wanted to thank Jason for reaching out and helping me with that.
So, all right. I will start with some of the in-person ones, and that's Vincenzo Ferriola and Russ Venari, who I saw at the Climate and Agricultural Summit that was at Duke Farms, which was really intriguing. And one of my big takeaways from it is we focused a lot on conventional farming.
Okay.
And I think one of the things that is often forgotten, at least in New Jersey, is as far as dollar value goes, nursery floriculture and sod account for almost half of the $1.5 billion that agricultural brings in as a commodity group. The next closest is vegetables, and I think that's like 19%. So you figure dollar-wise, nursery is 2.5 times bigger than any other group. But at this meeting, we didn't talk nurseries at all. And realistically, I'm like, I don't even really know how we fit into some of this stuff. You're talking about pollinator buffers and like how your water infiltration and all this stuff. Using less chemicals, I can understand. I'm like, man, you look at, we're growing a really green product, and I think we do some really green practices, but compared to some of the things that they were saying and the urgency at which we need to do it, For nurseries in particular, it's a much heavier lift than at a farm where I have a hedgerow. I'm going to throw some wildflower seed in there, and all of a sudden I have a little extra good. I already have the space. That being said, the nurseries tend to have the staff and the dollar resources to actually do some of this stuff, more so than your conventional farmers would. So I saw them there. Some of the reviews we got is Light Tonations on Spotify.
You missed one. There's one before it.
Oh, you want to know what? It's because I had to skip there. I didn't have a page break.
There you go.
I'll start with Light Tonations, and I'll go back. On Spotify, on a Buzzworthy Thanksgiving.
Going back.
That's a long time ago.
Yeah.
Said, really enjoying the podcast. I should occasionally get birch beer at a local Mennonite and Amish stores, but can't find it anywhere else in Tennessee. So I've been wanting to make birch beer for a while. We had our driveway paved, and I have a river birch right next to it, and it was just leaking sap like on our driveway, and I was like, oh man, I should tap that, and I just never got around to it.
I can't remember I think we were saying what you could have for native plants for Thanksgiving, if I remember the conversation. But I think where I always enjoy getting birch beer, and it's the clear birch beer, was at Knoebels, which is an amusement park in central Pennsylvania.
Oh, really?
And it's one that you don't pay to get in. It's still ticket driven per ride.
Yeah.
And I think they have like 2 of the top 10 rated wooden roller coasters there. So if you've never been there, it's a pretty cool place. It's like going back in time a little bit. So if you get a chance, but I know you can get it there. Like every time I go, I make sure I get it.
So then we had Sunny
Carinalian.
Carinalian. Yeah, that makes sense. I was going to say it's not Carolinian. Carinalian.
I thought it was like Sunny Corleone almost. Like I'm like
on Apple. Said saving the planet one planet at a time, which I think is Bill Jones and Shelby. I think their slogan for Carolina natives is saving the planet one planet at a time or something like that. Wish they could give us more than 5 stars as a weekly listener, engrossed in each episode, and enjoys the Buzz episodes, which we overstated that when we
did. We did
said that.
They're not as popular, but it's not that far.
It's about we probably get like 10% less listens on our average Buzz episode.
I think that's fair.
Which is so it's still thousands of listens. It's just not. It's 10% less. It's a few hundred less sometimes. So then we had Eric Fleming on Spotify about our Eclipse episode. Said it was another great episode, and don't worry about the prickly pear, which is thriving on this desk right now. And it's not flowers; it's new palms, I guess, or
and
leaves.
Our friend Santino reached out on this Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group, showing a picture of his, saying don't worry about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're pretty
and
hardy.
asked for updates. The new growth looks great.
It looks
good.
good.
It looks good.
Yeah, I still got to figure out where I want to put it in my yard, but container might not be a bad idea.
No, not at all.
Then we had Braithwaite Seth on Spotify, also about that episode, and said it was another fun episode, and can't wait to hear about the Eclipse party, which Fran was also attended.
Yes, I did.
And it was a good time. It was,
everyone,
yeah.
It was nice just kind of like hanging out. Like Tom had some Eclipse-themed snacks for us, and we all just kind of like hung out and talked and kept looking up at the eclipse. So it was, I don't know, it was a good kind of laid back time. And I noticed on social media a lot of our customers were doing the same thing, and it was nice to. It was funny because we came back into the office and we were getting ready to leave, and we had a phone call, and someone asked about something that we didn't have available.
All over the place. No one's answering the phone.
Yeah, no one's answering the phone. I'm like, they may be having an eclipse party, and they're like, oh yeah, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah. So no, it was funny because it got surprisingly cloudy. We were supposed to have clear weather all week, and then all of a sudden it changed last minute to being cloudy, and so every time there was a break in the clouds, like everyone would be like, oh, we gotta look, like someone would say it, and you'd have like 10 seconds to watch and put your glasses back on. But I know this is probably not good, but I know when the clouds were in front of it, you could see the eclipse behind the clouds sometimes without the glasses on, which was pretty mesmerizing. Probably not supposed to do it. I've been seeing spots lately, so I don't know if that's... I'm teasing. I am not seeing spots.
But I didn't realize how dark the glasses were. Yeah. And there was... Because you had 2 different types of glasses, I think, or did you
I had one, but some people brought their own.
Some people brought their own, and there was definitely a difference between the ones I had on and one of our coworkers had on because we switched for a second.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I can see much better through yours, but is that a good thing or a bad thing?
They were all approved because there were some ones that were like a different code number that were not actually approved for. Okay. But they were all the same number.
Yeah. Well, we were able to see it, and we all kind of hung out and enjoyed it, and then went home.
And then we had Next to Zero on Amazon, writing in everywhere now.
Yes.
I think they've reviewed us on every platform. Wrote fantastic show, emphasizing the importance of plants. Love the show. Each episode fun, informative, and engaging, worthy of sharing with all the plant lovers in your life.
Awesome.
So, thank you guys very much. One more shout out I'm going to give is a past guest, probably future guest, is Marty McHugh.
Yes.
And we were hoping to have him on by now.
This is good. Listen, this is the episode I've been dying to do for 2 years, 3 years. And there's a reason it's being held up, but we got to see Marty do this presentation, and it's one of the most intriguing presentations I've seen. Yeah.
But he asked me to give a little plug for an event they're doing for Conserve Wildlife NJ. You can go to their website, conservewildlifenj.org, and the link has a hawk, I believe it's a hawk, on a branch, and it's called the Wild Affair. And they're having a benefit dinner to support the organization celebrating 25 years. The date for that dinner is April 25th of 2024. So if you're listening to this, it is Thursday coming up. So you got a short amount of time to get tickets. I know there's some photo stuff that's going on. There's photo exhibit, silent auction, a video reveal for Conserve Wildlife NJ, and you'll also get to meet some of the biologists. Like I know Benjamin Wurst was someone who I think listens to this, but may be coming on to talk about some of the stuff Conserve Wildlife NJ does as well. So,
awesome. Looking forward to that one.
Yeah, so if you're able to go, consider purchasing tickets and going to that. It's at the Boathouse at Mercer County Park.
Oh, that's a great
what's that, West Windsor Township?
Yeah, I think it is. But that's a great park and a great venue in the park, too. So, if you get a chance, that's a huge park. I mean, there's a ice skating rink. It's huge. That's where I go kayaking. They have a fantastic kayak launch there also.
Now, if you can't make the dinner and because you live too far or for other reasons, they also have an online auction that you can go on to support the organization as well. But it's a really cool organization for New Jersey. Like I said, we were hoping to have them on prior to this to kind of promote it themselves, but I want to make sure people knew about it. And guess what? I'll be there. So maybe you get to see me too. I should have said I'm going to be there as well. So
there you go. That's the draw right there. You going to take some Native Plants Healthy Planet stickers with you to give out?
You know what I've been doing when I go to some events sometimes? I put some in my pocket just in case someone comes up and says, "Hey, I listen to your podcast," and I can give them one. I did not give one to Vincenzo. I realized that after I gave one to Russ because I think he has every sticker we have now.
Awesome.
So
I try to remember to put some in my pocket when I'm going somewhere so that I can hand them out. So for the sake of time, let's kick into questions. We do have one question this week.
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. And I want to have them answered immediately.
It's a simple question.
No, I didn't hear you. What was your question?
Yeah, I was just looking. We're about an hour.
Yeah, my timer's going to go off in a minute and a half.
Yeah, so you may want to pause it because I don't know how long this. I don't want to.
No, I'm just teasing. I'm going to pause it.
All right. Okay. Here we go.
Hi, this is Christy Boswell from Middle Tennessee. I am calling because I am curious about what native plants make the best potted plants, both for sun and for shade. I was interested in Dr. Talamay's idea about how apartments should put plant baskets on their balconies and thought that might be a really cool thing to get into. Anyway, I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.
Christy, thank you for calling in. I don't know why that was low at first. I had to turn that way up. At first, I'm like, is it even playing? Could you hear it?
It was quiet, but yeah.
It was quiet. Okay.
Good.
I was going to say, should I play the beginning again or no?
No,
okay.
You got it.
You got it? Okay. Right. I think like Tom just found out. Like I listened to this, just shared it with Tom this morning.
Yeah.
So Tom didn't have as much time to think about it as I did, and I was really thinking about, well, how can you get the most bang for your buck?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you need something that isn't going to be not aggressive, but overly large in a container.
Mm-hmm.
But I was thinking things like Zizia aria, which is that Golden Alexander?
Yep.
Which blooms early, and swallowtail butterflies love it. So, like, as far as being a larval host or food, you can get a lot of bang for your buck that way, and see that you're providing benefits. I was thinking of things like Aquilegia canadensis, because you could get hummingbirds from the red flowers, but that kind of like disappears as the year goes on. I was thinking Iris versicolor again, like help hummingbirds early, but again, it blooms early and it may not be as appealing. It does have a nice texture to the foliage throughout the year. Lance leaf tickseed, I was thinking may be a good one with the yellow blooms, and it will stay smaller. Yeah. You have any suggestions?
Yeah, some of the stuff I've seen in containers is, I would say growing in containers, you can grow a lot of the same plants. It's you might want to get a little bit larger container, and then even though they're perennials, you have to realize that it's where in the ground some of the stuff will last for a decade or more. Sometimes, not all the time. In a container, you're probably looking at like 3 to 5 years, maybe tops. Top 5 years would probably be pushing it. But I've seen Echinacea purpurea in containers. One of the cool suggestions is doing the prickly pear cactus in a container. I hadn't thought about doing that, but that might be the way, so I can get it away from where children may touch it, because I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
Then another one that I saw in a container at, I want to say it was Brooklyn Botanical Garden years ago, was sneezeweed.
Oh,
which was a cool container one. And you could probably do something like what's it, Phlox subulata, the ground cover one. That could make a cool container.
At my old house, I did have Monarda didyma in a container just to contain it. I didn't want to put it in the garden, and it did well in the container. It was like a larger container. But.
Yeah, that's, I guess, what I was trying to say earlier is you probably want a little bit bigger container than you might get for something else. The other one that I was thinking of, now I'm blanking on it. What I've heard works really cool for mum replacements is you do asters in containers.
Oh.
Like a New England aster, New York aster, some of the other asters you can do in a container, and then you want to keep it trimmed, and then in the fall, you can actually kind of make it look like a mum. I've seen pictures of that. I've never tried it myself.
You just have to keep pinching it.
Yeah, you basically just got to keep pinching it or trimming it back to keep it at the right shape.
You know, and this one, like, I know this. I was trying to think, could you incorporate any woodies? And again, it would be a larger pot. You could probably get away with a New Jersey tea.
Yeah,
because it's only gets 3 foot tall. It is slower. You can get 5 foot wide, but if you keep that pruned, you could probably keep it like 3 by 3, and then you get those blooms and all the benefits of that. You can use the leaves for tea. So you get to enjoy it as well as the pollinators. So I just thought that would be nice. Or mountain mint is another one that if you can keep it contained, you get the scent. It will keep mosquitoes away. You can make tea out of it, and the pollinators absolutely love it. So that's another one if you incorporate it. And that has a long bloom time. Like, that's one that the pollinators just love, like, all summer.
Yeah.
So, and you get to walk outside and get the scent of that, which is awesome. So
yeah. So no, those are, I'm sure there's plenty of other great suggestions. If you've had success with native plants in containers, leave it in the Facebook group. I want to see pictures if people have pictures of stuff.
I would love that.
I think there's probably people who are more experienced with it than we are that have done it that could probably share some of their insights.
Yeah, so even if you don't have a property in which you can plant, this is a great way that you can make a difference, that you can enjoy it and you can see the interaction. You know, if you did coneflower, like Tom mentioned, and you leave the seed heads over the winter and leave it out, you'll get goldfinches and birds like that. Like you'll get to see a difference in it's coming to you without just providing bird seed. You'll be able to attract some of these, and I think you'll see a difference pretty quickly. Yep. So I'm gonna, just for the sake of time, we're gonna skip Take It or Leave It this week, and I think that pretty much wraps it. We're about a little over an hour. Yeah,
no, I think that's perfect.
So we'll kind of,
I get to hit the road on time, which is good.
Yeah.
Don't have to try and do this while I'm driving, which was an idea I threw out there. I was like, I threw that out, and I'm like, wait, I got to read a lot between a couple things, so I don't know if that's going to work.
That's probably not the safest.
Yeah,
not the safest.
Here's you go, friend. Take it or leave it. Driving and reading at the same time. Are you in or out?
I'll go with the audiobook. Yeah. Listen, I can't even pay attention to an audiobook while I'm driving because my mind wanders enough. Like, could you imagine me trying to read something? Yeah. That would be a nightmare.
Yeah. So, well, that's going to wrap us up for today. Thank you, everyone, for joining us and listening to this Buzz episode of Native Plants, Healthy Planet, presented by Pinelands Nursery. We really hope you enjoyed it.
What do you think?
I like it a lot.
It's
much more succinct. Yeah.
Yeah. He was like, Jason's idea was, thank you for A, yada, yada, yada. Or he said, thank you for A, yada, B, yada, yada, C, yada, yada, yada. He's like, just say thank you for this and list them. Yeah. And then go into that. So I was like, yeah, why didn't I think of that? That was an awesome suggestion. Speaking of thank yous, thank you to RJ Comer for our Buzz intro theme music. It wouldn't be the same without it. Make sure you buy or stream RJ's music wherever you consume your music. Check out his Americana playlist on Pandora. Thank you to Dave Bennett for our native plant anthem. Follow us on Twitter at Pineland Nursery, Facebook at Pinelands Nursery NJ, Instagram at nativeplants_healthy planet, also at Pinelands Nursery, and YouTube at Pinelands Nursery as well. Call us at 215-346-6189. I will repeat that, 215-346-6189. That is the number to our question and comment line. You can call and leave a question or a comment. We will always do our best to play it on a future episode of The Buzz. And the Native Plants Healthy Planet Facebook group, I don't know what else I can say about that community. I just love it to death, and it just keeps getting... I'm glad that it hasn't exploded. Yeah. Because I'd be afraid of the influx and kind of guarding what has been created. I love that it's gradually increasing, but we're over 2,700 members. Yeah. And every time I look, it's wonderful, wonderful conversations going on.
So you can buy shirts and listen to Native Plants Healthy Planet at our website, www.nativeplantshealthyplanet.com. There's a link at the top that goes to our Teespring store for all of our merch. And we don't keep any of the profits for that. 100% of the profits go to organizations that we think are doing a really good job with native plants in the, boots on the ground stuff. Some of the couple $100 will go a long way. So if you haven't already, I'm assuming you have, leave us a 5-star review, hit subscribe wherever you listen, whether it's Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podbean, iHeartRadio. That goes a long, long way into helping other people find us and promoting native plants. So, okay, we have friend, do you have a secret?
I don't.
I don't want to. I'm not going to share a personal story today.
Okay.
My secret is if you're near some Amelanchier canadensis in bloom, and this is, I guess, pertinent to the people in New Jersey right now, go and check it out on a nice sunny day and see how much activity there is on that plant. It's I got to go by our 5-gallon containers of it, and I was just wowed at how many insects and probably 10 different species of insects that I saw foraging off of it right now. So
I went down last week with our social media expert to show them where there were some planted across from the pond. Yeah. And she was taking video, and you could see all that. We're like, look at the we were interrupting by being there. So, but yeah, definitely if you have a chance, check that out. So I think that's it, right?
Yeah, no, that's all for today. And with that, thank you, everyone. I'm Tom.
And I am Fran. Thank you again, everyone. I don't know if I'm going to say who I had coming up next, because it will be the next one we record, but it may not be the next one that you hear. So I will kind of keep that under wraps, because I think we're recording 2 before then. We'll have to decide which one we're airing. So it will be a surprise. So make sure you tune in for that. We'll see you again next time. And until then, keep it native.
Woods, wetlands, and dales grows a bounty of beauty that never fails. Our native plants, so diverse and so rare, treasures of our land beyond compare. From the ferns below, soaring oaks above, each plant has a place each family's love. Monarch caterpillars launch milk, wheat so tall, bees buzz about, sipping nectar from all. Oh, native plants, how you grace this land. In your diversity, we will take a stand. To preserve our generations of calm, their beauty and potency second to none. To protect and preserve the earth, to restore the native plant move that you just can't ignore.
Goldenrod, asters, and flowers galore. Monarch is so stunning, can't help but adore. Their colors, their fragrance, a feast for the eyes. Their value to wildlife, no need to disguise.
Native plants, how you grace this land. In your diversity, we will take a stand.
Thank you for listening to the Native Plants Healthy Planet podcast, presented by Pinelands Nursery. Remember to like, share, follow, and comment.